She sat on my couch, same spot we'd shared movie nights, study sessions, planning jobs that always seemed legitimate until they weren't. I need to explain, she said. About everything. You already have. Federal investigation, brother's murder, being trapped in Victor's web. I get it. No, not everything. She pulled an envelope from her jacket. Inside were photos, but not the kind Scout usually took. These are personal. Her in different hairstyles, different clothes, posing with various identification. Different identities, I realized. 6 of them. I've been running a parallel investigation. Not for Victor, not for the feds. For Marcus. But Marco's dead. We saw the video. Did we? Or did we see what Victor wanted us to see? She spread the photos on my coffee table. Marcus isn't the only one in that family with photography skills. That video was staged. My brother's alive. My world tilted slightly. How do you know? Because I've been channeling federal resources to a private search. The backgrounds, the identities, their cover for tracking down leads Victor's people thought they'd destroyed. And I found him. Or rather, he found me. She pulled out her phone, played a voicemail. The voice was male, terrified, clearly recorded in hiding. Scouts, if you're getting this, you need to stop. Victor knows you're looking. He's been keeping me alive as leverage, but if you keep pushing... I heard them talking. They're planning something big. Something that uses all the federal access they've corrupted. Find Dane. He's the only one Victor's afraid of. He's the only one who can. The message cut to static. When was this? 3 days ago, before Crawford's arrest. I processed the implications. Victor's operation hadn't been fully dismantled. His fear of me wasn't paranoia. It was strategic. Something bigger was coming. What was your brother investigating before he disappeared? A shipment. Not drugs, not weapons. Documents. Victor was moving federal documents out of the country. Case files, witness lists, active operation details. Selling to foreign interests? We don't know. But Marcus intercepted digital copies of some files. That's when Victor grabbed him. And now the investigation's compromised. Crawford had access to everything. Locations of protected witnesses, identities of undercover agents, details of international operations. Jesus, how many people are at risk? Hundreds at least. Maybe thousands worldwide. She stood, paced. The feds think Crawford's arrest solves everything. But Victor's too smart. He wouldn't put all his eggs in one basket, especially not one as exposed as a bureau deputy director. There's another mole. Multiple moles. Crawford was just the highest ranking we could prove. She turned to face me. I need your help, Dane. Officially, I can't investigate within federal constraints now. They think the threat's neutralized. But you know better. We both know better. That text you got for Victor? That wasn't just a threat. It was reconnaissance. He's probing for how much we know, how far we've dug. I moved to my window, watched the street below. News vans still camped out. Tourists taking photos of the building where the guy who helped catch Victor lived. If Victor had people watching, we're too exposed here, I said. Need somewhere secure. Scout nodded. I have a place. The federal task force doesn't know about it. Neither did Victor. She handed me an address. Meet me there tonight. 9 p.m. And Dane. Yeah. Don't tell anyone. Not Gore, not the DA, not the feds. Trust no one. Trust yourself. And maybe, tentatively, trust me again. After she left, I stared at the address. 1415 Riverside Drive. Old warehouse district, lots of urban decay. Perfect for hidden operations, legal or otherwise. I called Gore around noon, testing the waters. Just checking on the task force setup. Everything's moving forward. Kim's team is coordinating with our department. We'll have full access to Victor's files by tomorrow. Great. Any word on Scout's testimony timeline? Next week, preliminary hearings. What? Just keeping track. Listen, I'm taking the afternoon off. Need to process everything that's happened. Understandable. But Dane, if you hear anything unusual, any threats, I'll report it immediately. Good. Get some rest. I hung up, already planning my approach to Riverside Drive. If Victor still had resources active, they'd be watching anyone connected to the investigation. I needed to move carefully. At 6 p.m., I started my counter-surveillance routine. Left through the building's service entrance, Took 3 buses in different directions, doubled back twice. By 8:30, I was confident I'd lost any potential tails. The warehouse at 1415 was structurally sound but externally dilapidated. Perfect cover. Scout's motorcycle was hidden around back, covered with a tarp. Inside, she'd created an impressive operations center, computers, monitors, secure communications equipment. "Welcome to the real investigation," she said as I entered. Walls were covered with a complex web of information. Photos, documents, digital printouts. But this time, the focus wasn't Victor, it was his network. Crawford's arrest triggered immediate protocol, Scout explained. Victor's organization has a dead man's switch. If key members fall, certain data gets released automatically. Blackmail. Leverage. Victor collected dirt on everyone, but the real power is in operational intelligence. Think about it. Every protected witness location, every undercover agent's real identity, every ongoing federal investigation. Released to who? Highest bidders. Foreign intelligence services, terrorist organizations, criminal cartels. Victor turned law enforcement corruption into an international security crisis. I studied the web on her wall. Names I recognized from federal agencies, international police forces, diplomatic corps. How do we stop it? The data is distributed across multiple secure servers, like a blockchain, but infinitely more valuable. We need to identify the key holders and shut down access before someone pays for this information. And Marcus? He's tracking the other side, the buyers. He's been living in various countries under different identities, infiltrating the networks interested in Victor's data. She pulled up a communication log. Last message was from Romania. He'd identified a buyer representing interest from 3 different nations. When? Yesterday. Radio silence since then. I noticed something on the log. These timestamps. They're all early morning, around 3 a.m. Marcus always communicated during the 3 a.m. gap. Lowest activity period for monitoring systems. It's nearly that now. As if on cue, Scout's secure terminal chimed. A message was coming through. Source, 47, Echo 7. This is M. Situation critical. Buyer consortiums are bidding war. Package sale happens on March 7th. Location unknown. Need immediate assistance. Crawford's arrest only escalated timeline. V has fail-safes we didn't know about. Scout went pale. March 7th. That's tomorrow. Your locker combination. The number you told me meant. The day Marcus was supposed to die. Victor's been planning this for 6 years. She accessed another system, pulling up shipping manifests, travel logs, financial transactions. If the sale happens tomorrow, the logistics had to be in place weeks ago. Can we trace the money? Already did. The accounts bounced through 12 countries before hitting dead ends. But she pointed to a transport log. Private airfield outside Eden. Flight manifest filed for March 7th. Destination, international waters. Neutral territory. Perfect for an auction. No jurisdiction, no interference. We had 12 hours to prevent a catastrophic intel breach. I called up my own contacts, information brokers, black market dealers, anyone who might know about unusual activity in the procurement world. Around midnight, Zebra responded to my encrypted query. Unusual activity in the rare documents market. Anonymous seller offering the most valuable digital collection in modern history. Private preview tomorrow at undisclosed location. Starting bid, 100 million. Can you get details on the preview? For appropriate compensation. Name your price. Not money. Access to a federal database. Belmano Bagdo. I looked at Scout. He wants federal access. Give it to him. The breach is already happening. One more access point won't matter if we can stop the sale. I arranged the details with Zebra. He'd have login credentials within an hour. In exchange, preview location would be sent at dawn. While waiting, Scout and I prepared. Weapons, surveillance equipment, emergency extraction protocols. We were operating outside any legal framework now, but the alternative, international chaos from compromised intelligence, was unacceptable. At 3:15 a.m., another message from Marcus. They caught me. Sale moved up. Happening now. Eden Harbor. Pierre Onyedinji. Hurry. We raced through empty streets. Harbor District at 3:30 a.m. belonged to loading crews and seagulls. Pier 17 sat at the industrial end, massive container ships blocking most sightlines. Scout's motorcycle could navigate narrow passages between containers. We approached from the unguarded south side, cutting engines 2 piers over. The auction was set up in a cleared shipping container, converted to a high-tech conference room. Through thermal imaging, we counted 15 attendees. Armed security circled the perimeter. EMP device could knock out their systems, Scout whispered, and alert everyone to our presence. Entry strategy? I studied the setup. Security focused outward, assuming threats would come from authorized access points. But containers offered vertical options. We climbed to the second level, moving, container to container, until directly above the auction site. Through a damaged roof panel, we could see inside. Victor was there, somehow, massive, wolf-headed, presiding over digital destruction of international security. Marcus sat bound near the front, visibly beaten. The bidding had started. Representatives from different nations, criminal organizations, terrorist cells. The numbers were astronomical. Scout handed me a directional EMP charge. We hit this on their server rack, auction's over. Lives destroyed for everyone in those databases means war. Scout positioned the charge through the roof gap. On your count. I pulled out my phone, set a 30-second timer. If this worked, we'd have a brief window before backup systems activated. Timer starts. Now, the EMP went off like a camera flash. Instantly, every electronic device died. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing the container in red. Chaos erupted. Bidders shouted in multiple languages. Security rushed toward confused systems. We dropped through the roof. I hit the first guard with a taser. Scout had Victor in her sights. Stand down, she commanded. Victor turned slowly, a smile spreading across his lupin features. Scout Miller. I wondered when you'd arrive. It's over. The auction's dead. Is it? You destroyed one system. The data has backups. Not that you can access. We shut down your network. His smile widened. Did you? Or did you trigger the automatic upload to our buyers? My stomach dropped. Marcus struggled against his restraints, shouting something through his gag. Scout's aim didn't waver. Explain. The EMP was expected. We've been 3 steps ahead since Crawford's arrest. The physical auction was theater. Real sale happened digitally, already completed. Bullshit. Check your federal databases. By now, protected witness locations are being emptied. Undercover operations are being compromised. International relations are imploding. I rushed to a nearby terminal that had survived the EMP. With emergency power, I accessed news feeds. Reports already coming in. Diplomatic crisis in Eastern Europe, terrorist attack in Southeast Asia, high-value assets disappearing across 3 continents. Stop this, Scout demanded. I can't. The beauty of automation. Once triggered, it runs its course. Victor's eyes gleamed. Unless you need a kill switch. But that requires access I no longer have. The backups. Distributed. Quantum encrypted. Only one person has override access. Marcus. Scout moved toward her brother. I covered Victor, though his supreme confidence suggested he wasn't worried about physical restraint. She removed Marcus's gag. How do we stop it? Legacy protocol, Marcus rasped. But it requires simultaneous input from 3 locations. The Federal Database Center, Eden's main server farm, and a master terminal here. Here. He nodded toward a concealed panel. Behind it, a sophisticated quantum computer, still operational despite the EMP. Even with simultaneous input, we need authorization codes only Crawford has. Crawford's in federal custody. No, Victor Interfective. Crawford's dead. Killed in transport 2 hours ago. His codes died with him. You planned this entire frame. I planned for every contingency. But Mr. Martinez, you've caused more problems than anticipated. Dane Scout called. Marcus says there's a legacy bypass, but it needs someone with deep system knowledge and current federal clearance. You have clearance? Not anymore. Suspended during testimony prep. So we're dead. Not necessarily, Marcus said weakly. There's one other person with the right access. Who? Gore. He got federal license status when the task force formed. I looked at my phone. No signal in the shielded container. How do we reach him? You don't, Victor snarled. He moved faster than anything his size should, backhanding me across the container. My head rang as I hit the wall. Scout opened fire. Victor took 3 shots, but kept advancing. His regeneration was faster than I'd expected. Marcus, the bypass. Her brother fought his restraints, finally breaking free. He rushed to the quantum terminal, fingers flying across the quantum interface. Need more time. I tackled Victor's legs. For a moment, werewolf physics worked against him. Too much momentum, not enough agility. We crashed to the ground. Scout provided covering fire as I grappled with Eden's most dangerous criminal. His strength was overwhelming. His healing made conventional damage pointless. Done. Catch. Scout threw something. I grabbed it mid-roll, a silver stake. Werewolves weren't actually vulnerable to silver, but it disrupted their regeneration temporarily. I drove it between Victor's ribs. He howled in pain and fury. Almost there, Marcus shouted. Victor began healing around the stake. I had seconds before he'd be fully functional again. Scout, your locket. She understood immediately. The silver. Locket she always wore, inherited from our high school drama teacher. Supposed to contain a blessing against evil. In Eden, such things had real power. She ripped it off, threw it to me. I pressed it against Victor's forehead as he regenerated. Holy energy and silver together. His roar shook the container. Done. Marcus collapsed over the terminal. But we still need federal access. The system's asking for authorization. I pulled out my phone, hoping against hope the federal task force gave me some kind of emergency contact. Found Agent Kim's direct line. 1 bar of signal. Kim, emergency. Need Gore's federal authorization codes. Lives depend on it. Matthews? What? No time. If you can activate Gore's full access, broadcast it. That's not protocol. Fuck protocol. Do it now. Minutes crawl by. Victor's healing was winning against the locket's power. He'd be free soon. Then Marcus's terminal chimed. Access granted. Activating the shutdown sequence. Victor's last conscious effort was to grab Scout. His massive hand closed around her arm as the quantum systems initiated their protocol. If I'm going down, but the shutdown affected him too. His modified DNA, linked to Victor's digital control systems, began to fail. His grip weakened. Scout pulled free. The data, deleted, Marcus confirmed. Formatting complete. No copies, no backups. Systems wiping itself clean. Victor's form shifted erratically between wolf and man as his enhancements failed. You think this ends anything? My network runs deeper. Maybe, I said, still holding the locket against him. But not tonight. Federal agents burst through the container entrance. Kim led the charge, weapon drawn. Stand down. We have control. The next hours blurred together. Medical attention, statements, coordination with international agencies to mitigate damage from the partial data release. Marcus survived his injuries. Scout faced no charges, federal protection in exchange for full testimony about Victor's network. Victor was transported to a specialized containment facility. His organization scattered but weakened, leadership decimated. I found Gore in the Federal Command Center at dawn. He looked haggard from his own night of critical decisions. You pulled through, I said. Kim explained the situation after your call. Biggest operational emergency in Bureau history. Took executive authorization to grant me the override codes. Thank you. Thank yourself. If you hadn't connected those dots, hadn't pushed when everyone else thought the threat was neutralized. He shook his head. International catastrophe averted by a private investigator with trust issues. I prefer to think of them as trust reserves. At noon, I stood on my apartment balcony. Eden stretched out below, gradually returning to its version of normal. The news was full of stories about the federal corruption scandal, international crisis averted, the mysterious night of the broken network. Scout joined me, her arm in a sling from where Victor had grabbed her. Marcus is transferring to witness protection, she said. Different identity, different life. And you, officially? Cooperating witness, federal immunity. Unofficially, she smiled. I think I'll stick around Eden a while longer. Someone needs to keep investigating the corners Victor's people might still hide in. Partners. Partners. But I get better coffee than your office serves. We shook hands, then embraced carefully. 6 years of friendship, betrayal, and redemption compressed into one moment. I should warn you, I said as she pulled away. Detective work in Eden means a lot of time in holding cells. I'll try to avoid the handcuffs. Good luck with that. 2 weeks later, I sat in the task force office, reviewing my first official case as civilian consultant. The workload was overwhelming. Victor's network left hundreds of loose ends. Each thread we pulled revealed new knots. Gore entered with coffee. Real coffee, not department sludge. International intelligence confirms no additional breaches. Whatever got released has been contained. And the buyers? Several arrests, several under surveillance. Crisis averted doesn't mean case closed. Speaking of cases, I said, pulling up a new file. Missing person, teenager from the North District. No ransom demand, no clear motive. Victor's influence? Possible. Or just Eden being Eden. Either way, someone needs to look for her. Gore settled into his chair. Where do we start? Where we always start in this city. With the assumption everyone's connected to everyone else. And the truth is darker than we think. He laughed grimly. Welcome to the department, Matthews. I looked at my desk, official badge, federal clearance, direct line to resources I'd never had before. 6 months ago, I was getting arrested. Today, I was part of the system trying to fix itself. The irony wasn't lost on me. But as I opened, the missing person file began making calls to informants and coordinated with Gore on strategic approaches, I realized something had fundamentally changed. I wasn't just reacting to Eden's darkness anymore. I was actively pushing back against it. A knock interrupted my work. The door opened to reveal a woman I'd never seen before, tall, elegant, with the distinctive features of a snow leopard shifter. Detective Gore? Mr. Matthews? I'm Director Sarah Chun, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I need to discuss your next assignment. Gore and I exchanged looks. In Eden, the next crisis was always just beginning. Come in, I said. We're always ready for whatever you've got. Director Chin smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm glad to hear it, because what we have is unprecedented. She laid a folder on my desk. Inside, photos of crime scenes across multiple states. Each showed the same pattern, sophisticated technology theft, but only from companies working on classified government projects. We believe someone's building something, Chin explained. Using stolen components from military contractors, aerospace manufacturers, quantum computing firms. Building what? That's what we need you to find out. Your experience with Victor's operation, your understanding of how criminal networks and corrupt officials interact. You're uniquely qualified. I studied the photos, the precision, the targeting, the resource requirements. This wasn't street crime. This was something organized at a level that rivaled Victor's operation. When do we start? Immediately. This investigation takes priority over all local cases. Gore moved to the evidence board. Pattern analysis suggests the thefts are following a specific sequence, like they're collecting ingredients for a recipe. Exactly, and we believe they're almost complete. I activated my contacts list. If someone was building something that scared the FBI, I needed to know what underground chatter might exist. One question, I said. Why bring this to Eden? Surely there are federal task forces better equipped. Because the last theft happened here, 3 days ago, from Meridian Tech Industries. They make quantum processors, the breakthrough technology that could theoretically bridge human and digital consciousness. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Someone's trying to create hybrid intelligence, Gore said slowly. Merger of artificial and organic minds. Or worse, Chin replied. The theft pattern suggests they're building something that could forcibly link human minds to a digital network. Imagine absolute control over human thought, distributed across the population. I thought about Victor's network, how he'd corrupted systems piece by piece. This was that concept taken to its ultimate extreme. We'll need everything, I told Shun. Resources, jurisdiction, complete information sharing. You have it. The president has signed an executive order. This is now your priority above all others. She left additional files and secure access codes. After she departed, Gore and I sat in the quiet weight of our new responsibility. Ever feel like we're chess pieces in a game that keeps expanding? I asked. All the time. But chess pieces can still influence the outcome. I opened my secure terminal, began routing through my information network. Zebra, of course, but also newer contact from Victor's dismantled operation. People who owed favors or sought redemption. As responses trickled in, a pattern emerged. Whispers about a project called Collective Consciousness. Testing on subjects who then disappeared. Technology demonstrations to potential buyers who weren't governments or corporations, but something else entirely. Religious cults? Gore suggested, reading over my shoulder. Worse, philosophical movements. Groups that believe individual consciousness is a disease that needs to be cured. By forcing everyone into a hive mind. Exactly. Around midnight, Scout called in. Dane, I've been tracking something unusual. Tech thefts, but the stolen items don't make military sense. They make merger sense. Someone's building a bridge between human and digital consciousness. How did you? Never mind. I have a lead. Company called Nexus Dynamics. Public front for genetic research. But their power consumption suggests quantum computing on massive scale. Location: Eden Industrial Park. Warehouse District. Drone surveillance shows heavy security. I looked at Gore. Request federal warrant. Already typing it up. By 3 a.m., we had a small federal team assembling. Entry protocol emphasized preservation of equipment. Whatever they were building might be our only clue to stopping it. The warehouse was a fortress. Security that would make government facilities jealous. But Eden had taught me that every system has vulnerabilities. Service tunnels, I told the team. This district's built over Old Eden. Underground. Passages everywhere. We entered through maintenance access, emerging inside their perimeter. Thermal showed minimal guards. Most security was electronic. Inside the main lab, we found it. A central chamber with neural interface, chairs surrounding a quantum server farm. Subject preparation areas. Testing chambers. In files, hundreds of subjects tracked, their brain patterns mapped, their integration protocols documented. But no people. The facility was abandoned, cleaned out. They knew we were coming. The team leader cursed. Look for data, Gore ordered. Any clue where they went? I searched systematically. Standard protocol would be wiping drives, destroying evidence. But I learned to look for psychological blind spots. What people forget because they don't see it as evidence. Found it in the break room. A shipping label torn from a coffee package. Romanian import company. Dated 2 weeks ago. Romania, I called out. They've been preparing fallback location. That's where Marcus went off grid, Scout said over comms. Think there's a connection? Everything connects. We gathered what data the team could recover. Partial blueprints, fragments of subject files, residue from neurotransmitter solutions. Enough to understand the horror they planned, not enough to stop it. Back at headquarters, federal techs worked to decrypt recovered data. I made international calls, leveraging my network to track Romanian science facilities with recent unusual activity. Around dawn, breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Victor's former attorney, still in federal custody, requesting protective custody in exchange for information. My client had dealings with a group called the Unity Collective, he explained via video call. Not for profit, for philosophy. They believe separation of consciousness causes all human suffering. And they're building a solution. More than that, they're ready to deploy. Next week, major population centers simultaneous introduction of carrier agents. What kind of carrier? Viral vectors modified to carry nanoscale quantum receivers. Once in the bloodstream, they'll activate on signal, linking subjects to the collective network. Global pandemic as delivery system for forced consciousness merger. Do they have subject matter expertise? They've recruited from tech companies, universities, government labs worldwide. Their funding is significant. How significant? Enough to have accelerated timeline after we're neutralized Victor's network. They see major events as opportunity. We had a week, maximum, to stop consciousness-destroying technology from being released globally. The task force exploded into action. International warrants, coalition building, intelligence sharing. I pushed my network to extremes, calling in every favor, making deals I'd normally avoid. In Eden, you learn to walk the line between legal and effective. 3 days of frantic investigation led to their Romanian facility. But arriving, we found similar situation. Evacuated, sanitized, minimal evidence. They're ghosts, I told Shin via satellite phone. Warn about investigations before they happen. Move operations seamlessly. Someone inside is feeding information, she concluded. Deeper than Crawford. This is someone with access to real-time tracking of our operations. Back in Eden, paranoia crept in. Every briefing could be compromised. Every system access could be monitored. Trust, already difficult in this city, became impossible. That night, unable to sleep, I stared at investigation boards in my apartment. The pattern seemed cosmic in scale, small corruption in Eden expanding to threaten global human consciousness. Scout found me there at midnight. Heard about Romania. They're always ahead. It's like they can predict our moves. Maybe they can. She handed me coffee. What if prediction isn't needed when you can't control? Meaning, what if some of their test subjects weren't volunteers? What if they've already integrated people into their network? People who can access our planning, our operations? The thought chilled me. How would we know? Check for pattern changes in behavior. People who suddenly make unusual decisions, show different priorities. I call the team back. Need full psych workups on everyone with task force access. Look for behavioral anomalies over past month. Results came back within hours. 3 people showed minor changes consistent with neurochemical modification. Minor, but measurable. Containment protocol, Chun ordered. Isolate and test. But when federal agents moved to secure the 3 suspects, all were already gone. Their homes empty, their electronics wiped, their last known locations showing no trace. They knew, Gore said, which means the test itself was monitored. We faced enemy that could predict investigations, influence investigators, and deploy globally within days. Standard law enforcement was inadequate. Need to think like criminals, I told Chun. They're running logistics operation. Global delivery system requires infrastructure ordinary agencies don't have. Cartels or companies. Pharmaceutical distribution networks. NGOs with medical charity operations. Anyone who can move large quantities across borders without excessive screening. We pivoted strategy. Instead of chasing the Unity Collective directly, we targeted potential delivery partners. Backtraced shipping routes, flagged unusual medical supply orders, investigated charitable organizations with quantum computing researchers. In 2 days, we identified 17 possible networks. Most were dead ends, legitimate operations with no connection. But 3 showed concerning patterns. Rapid expansion despite market conditions. Key personnel with backgrounds in neuroscience. Power consumption inconsistent with stated operations. Which one's real? Chen asked. We had maybe 70 hours before deployment window. All of them, I replied. This is the level Victor dreamed of. Redundant operations, each capable of completing the mission. We can't raid 3 targets in different countries simultaneously without alerting. We split. Specialized teams for each target. Complete information isolation between groups to prevent infiltration. Who leads each team? I looked at my core group. Gore, take the Swiss operation. Scout, you handle the Indonesian site. I'll go to the South African facility. And if we're wrong, if the real operation is somewhere we haven't identified, then Earth becomes a single consciousness prison. Chen approved the plan. International permissions were rushed through. 3 teams assembled with fastest available transport. 36 hours later, I stood outside a medical research facility near Johannesburg. Local authorities had provided minimal support, They couldn't comprehend the global implications. My team included federal operators, a neuroscience consultant, and a quantum technology expert. We studied the building carefully. No obvious defense systems, the tactical leader observed. That's what worries me. The other locations had serious security. Maybe this one's a shell. Or maybe it's too important to defend. Why secure a position when you can abandon it immediately if threatened? Entry protocol, clean sweep, top floor to basement. Preserve everything electronic, anyone organic. We breached before dawn. The facility wasn't abandoned. Skeleton crew maintaining equipment. They surrendered without resistance. Top floor held executive offices. Middle floors showed research labs. But the basement was exceptional. Quantum computing arrays, neural mapping stations, vast storage of extracted consciousness patterns. They've already archived thousands of minds, the neuroscience consultant reported. These aren't simulations. These are actual neural patterns digitized for storage. Where are the subjects? Searches revealed medical bay with life support systems. 7 subjects maintained in induced comas, brain activity monitored and recorded continuously. They're testing maintenance of consciousness transfer, the quantum expert explained. Keeping organic brains alive while digital copies are activated remotely. Can we wake them? Carefully. Neural feedback could cause seizures if not managed properly. As subjects were gradually awakened, investigation team processed facility's data system. What we found exceeded worst projections. The Unity Collective had already deployed carrier agents in 12 cities. Not viral distribution as we'd assumed, but through municipal water systems. Nanoscale receivers now in bloodstreams of millions. Activation hasn't occurred, the expert confirmed. But infrastructure is in place. I contacted Chin immediately. Full global crisis. Need immediate international cooperation. They can activate anytime. Other teams found similar. This is their production cluster. All 3 facilities created components for the network. What triggered timeline acceleration? Best guess? Our investigation. They're rolling out while we're still mobilizing response. Can we jam the activation signal? Quantum encrypted. Can't block what we can't predict. Then we kill the source. Where's the central control? Recovered data pointed to mobile command center. Aircraft carrier level operation, somewhere international waters. How do we track it? Power signature. Quantum computers at this scale generate specific energy patterns. Satellite thermal imaging could locate it. NSA was brought into cooperation. Military satellites retasked for thermal tracking. 6 hours of searching identified anomaly in Western Atlantic. Thermal signature massive enough for quantum servers. Destroyer fleet moving to intercept, Chun reported. But they'll have defensive capabilities. Not military. This is science vessel by every legal standard. With world-changing technology. Naval. Forces approached under international waters protocol. The collective's ship, disguised as research vessel Prometheus, requested diplomatic immunity. Deny it, I advised Chun. They're about to commit crimes against humanity. Legal territory is murky. Make it clear. This is active prevention of existential threat. Chun convinced her superiors. Naval blockade established with international oversight. The facility in South Africa was secured. Subjects stabilized, systems analyzed. But tension remained. The Unity Collective could trigger activation from multiple backup systems. Naval blockade only prevented escape, not execution. I proposed direct approach. Let me board their vessel, not as law enforcement, but as private citizen. They've tried recruiting me indirectly through Victor's network. What? Because my brain patterns apparently show rare compatibility with their consciousness bridge technology. They think I'd be valuable early adopter. You're volunteering for integration? I'm volunteering to get close enough to destroy their activation systems before they can trigger. Chun hesitated. Extreme risk. Global enslavement is extreme risk. Gore volunteered to accompany. You'll need someone to watch your back. This is solo mission. Too many unknowns if they're reading minds. Not reading. Merging. They can't extract memories you actively resist. Mental discipline training might suffice. We spent 8 hours in intensive preparation. Mental resistance techniques, quantum disruption devices disguised as medical equipment, extraction protocols if capture seemed imminent. The Prometheus allowed us aboard as interested researchers. Its interior resembled mobile laboratory far more than commercial vessel. We were led to presentation chamber, where Unity Collective's leadership explained their vision. Humanity's greatest suffering comes from isolation. Their leader, Dr. Elena Varga, explained. We don't eradicate consciousness. We liberate it from individual limitation. By force, I responded. By enlightenment. Once connected, subjects realize benefits immediately. No resistance exists because collective will supersede #best HFY stories. I got arrested. Again. Not again. I muttered as the all-too-familiar cold steel of handcuffs clicked around my wrists. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like angry hornets, casting harsh shadows across Detective Tusk's scarred face. His lion-like mane and predatory smile made my stomach churn. I'd been in this exact situation at least 7 times this year, and it was only March. You're quite the regular, Dane, Tusk drawled, his claws clicking against the steel table in Interrogation Room 3. The Eden Police Department had apparently run out of creativity when building this place. White concrete walls, one-way mirror, and chairs that were deliberately uncomfortable to sit in. Classic psychological warfare. I'm more of a frequent flyer, I quipped back, refusing to let him see me sweat. Racking up those loyalty points for the get-out-of-jail-free card. Tusk's partner, a hulking minotaur named Gore, shifted in his seat. His massive frame made the standard-issue chair look like it belonged in a dollhouse. Unlike Tusk, Gore was known for playing by the book, a rare trait in Eden's cesspool of corruption and back-alley deals. This time's different, wise guy, Tusk sneered, sliding a photo across the table. The glossy surface reflected the overhead lights, but the image was crystal clear. Me, in my favorite leather jacket, caught mid-action with a smoking pistol in my hand. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. just last night. My stomach did an uncomfortable flip. This wasn't just another trumped-up charge. I can explain. I started, but Tusk cut me off. You can explain why you opened fire in the middle of Main Street, outside the Neon Serpent Bar. His yellowed fangs showed as he grinned. Were my associates frequent? Associates, right? The Crowd Gang, led by Victor the Wolf Shifter. They ran most of the illegal operations on the east side of Eden, and everyone knew Tusk was on their payroll. But knowing and proving were two very different things. I was pursuing a bounty, I said carefully. Guy named Marco Bendetti, small-time drug dealer who skipped bail. He ran into the bar, and I followed. Wasn't planning on any shootouts. Funny thing about planning, Gore rumbled, speaking for the first time. His voice was like gravel in a cement mixer. Sometimes plans go awry. I caught his eye, searching for any hint of sympathy. After 6 arrests this year alone, you'd think I'd have built up some rapport with at least a few cops in this department. Gore just stared back, his expression unreadable behind his scarred face. Look, I continued. Let me see that photo again. Tusk smirked but slid it back across the table. I studied it carefully. The angle, the lighting, even the way my hand was positioned. Something wasn't right. This was taken from inside the bar, I observed. Main Street faces west. At this time of night, the street lights create specific shadows. The photographer had to be inside. Your point, Tusk growled. My point is that someone set up this shot. Professional camera work. And isn't it convenient that this angle makes it look like I fired first? I tapped the photo. Yet the police report says Bendetti and the Crowd Boys were shooting from inside the bar. Tusk's eye twitched. Maybe you should spend less time being a smartass and more time thinking about how you're going to explain this to a judge. I'd love to, I shot back. But first, let's talk about how you got here so fast. Almost like you were already in the neighborhood. The room fell silent. Gore shifted again, his hooves scraping against the floor. Tusk's claws extended slightly, scratching deeper into the steel table. We were on patrol, he said through gritted teeth. At exactly 11:50 p.m., 3 minutes after the shooting, in a car that several witnesses say was parked outside since 10. Now I had both their attention. This was dangerous territory, but I was already neck-deep in trouble. Might as well go for broke. Speaking of witnesses, I continued, I bet the Neon Serpent has security cameras. Want to check those tapes? Tusk's silence spoke volumes. He knew what those tapes would show. We'll be keeping you overnight, he finally said. Judge McKenna can sort this out tomorrow. Judge McKenna? The one who's been buying rounds at the Neon Serpent every Thursday for the past 6 months? I couldn't help but laugh. This town's corruption runs deeper than Eden Canyon. As Gore led me to a holding cell, I caught him giving me a look that almost seemed sympathetic? Or maybe I was just desperate for an ally in this backward city where justice was more commodity than concept. The cell door clanged shut with finality. I sat on the thin mattress, mind racing. This was more than just another case of Dane steps in it again. Victor's gang was involved, Tusk was clearly on the take, and I was the convenient scapegoat. But I had cards to play yet. Outside my cell, I could hear Tusk talking to someone on his phone. Yeah, it's handled. No problems. Fine, I'll make sure he talks. In Eden, I'd learned that being arrested was sometimes just another form of networking. The trick was surviving long enough to make your connections count. The sound of Tusk's boots receding down the hallway marked the beginning of what I knew would be a very long night. But I've spent longer nights in worse places. Time to play the hand I'd been dealt, even if the deck was stacked against me. As I lay back on the lumpy mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, I couldn't help but grin. Mom always said I'd end up in prison, but she never specified it would be as a regular guest, not a permanent resident. Not again, I'd muttered when those cuffs went on. But again was just another word for opportunity in my book, and I was already planning my next move. The morning couldn't come soon enough. Judge McKenna would be in for quite a surprise. The stale air of my holding cell reeked of desperation and cheap industrial cleaner. 6 hours crawled by like molasses before Gore returned, a steaming cup of something that vaguely resembled coffee in his massive hand. Thought you might need this, he said, sliding the cup through the bars. Long night. Eyed him suspiciously. Cops didn't just bring coffee unless they wanted something. Thanks. Let me guess, Tusk wants to offer me a deal. Gore shook his head slowly. Tusk is occupied. Judge McKenna's been delayed until tomorrow. Motor accident on Highway 7. Convenient. I took a sip, grimacing at the bitter taste. So, you drew the short straw for babysitting duty? I volunteered. His brown eyes, surprisingly gentle for someone built like a tank, studied me carefully. I've been looking into your record, Dane. 7 arrests this year, 0 convictions. I'm either very innocent or very good at what I do. You've got a reputation for finding trouble, but also for being truthful when it matters. He leaned against the wall. Tell me about last night. The real story. I set down the coffee. This was unexpected, but I'd learned to roll with the punches in Eden. Marco Bendetti owes Big Tony $3,000. Hasn't been seen in weeks until yesterday when I tracked him to the docks. Lost him in Riverside, but got word he'd be at the Neon Serpent around 11. You're not licensed for bounty hunting, Gore pointed out. Since when does that stop anyone in Eden? Half the PIs in this city are glorified mercenaries. I paused. Present company excluded, of course. He snorted. Continue. I arrived at 11:30. The place was packed. Saw Bendetti at the bar, surrounded by Victor's boys. Recognized 3 of them, the Komodo dragon shifter, Red Tooth, one of Victor's wolves, and some new muscle I hadn't seen before. You try to approach? I'm not suicidal. I call for backup first. You guys logged that call at 11:43, right? Gore nodded slowly. We did, but backup was delayed because Tusk told them to hold position. I asked pointedly. The Minotaur's jaw tightened. Because of traffic protocols. Right. While I was waiting, Bendetti spotted me. Must have been twitchy. Bolted out the back. I followed, went around the building. That's when the shooting started. According to Tusk's report. Tusk's report is worth about as much as Confederate money. I interrupted. I fired 2 warning shots. They fired 15. That photo makes it look like I started blazing away like some action hero. Why would Tusk cover for Victor's gang? I gave him a look. Really? How much does detective work pay these days compared to what Victor can offer? Gore remained silent, but his silence was answer enough. Let me tell you something, I continued, gauging his reaction. That photo, it was taken by Scout Miller. Works behind the bar at the Neon Serpent. She's got a side business doing what you might call insurance photography for people like Victor. How do you know this? Because I know Scout. We went to Eden High together. She told me last month she'd gotten a new camera for her projects. A Hasselblad X1D. Expensive equipment for a bartender. Gore processed this information. If we could get those security tapes, you'd see everything. Me entering, Bendetti running, Victor's boys shooting first, and me returning fire only after they'd already put 3 rounds through the front window. We'd need a warrant. I laughed bitterly. Who's going to sign that? McKenna? Half the judges in this city are on Victor's Christmas card list. There are still good people in the system, Dane. Present company included? I asked, watching him carefully. I took an oath to serve and protect. And Tusk, what oath did he take? The question hung in the air between us. Gore's hand gripped his coffee cup tight enough to crack it. I need evidence, he finally said. Hard evidence. Not just your word against his. Check my phone records. I can prove I called for backup before any shooting started. And get Scout's name on a witness list. Under protection, she might. The door to the holding area burst open. Tusk strode in, his mane bristling with agitation. What the hell are you doing, Gore? Following standard procedure, detective. Witness interview for the report. He's not a witness, he's the perp. And McKenna's delayed till tomorrow. Tusk grabbed Gore's arm. Come on, we've got real work to do. As they left, Gore caught my eye. A barely perceptible nod. Good cop, with just a better actor than Tusk. Time would tell. Alone again, I pulled out the hidden asset I'd been saving. A business card wedged between my shoe and insole. A small 1-inch by 1-inch card, but it represented my ace in the hole. On the front, Scout Miller Photography Services. On the back, in her distinctive handwriting, Dane, use this if SHDF. You know where to find me. The card also bore a number she'd scrawled in pencil. Not printed, handwritten. In Eden, that usually meant it wasn't being monitored by Victor's people. Hopefully, Tusk hadn't been thorough in his pat-down. Arrogance, probably. Or maybe he figured I was already beaten. He'd figure wrong. I slid the card back into its hiding place just as I heard boots approaching. But these weren't cop boots. Too light, too deliberate. A figure appeared in the shadows beyond my cell. Small, wiry, with the distinctive features of a coyote shifter. I recognized him immediately. Diego Vasquez, one of Victor's newer recruits. Message from a boss, Diego whispered, producing a piece of paper from his jacket. Says you got till sunrise to decide. Talk to the cops, and your next cell will be a coffin. The paper slid under the bars. On it, a crude drawing, my apartment building with an X marked on my window. Subtle these guys weren't. Tell Victor his artistic skills need work. I replied, trying to project more confidence than I felt. Diego's laugh was humorless. Tell him yourself. You got his number. Indeed, everyone in Eden did. But calling Victor was like summoning the devil. You better be ready to pay the price. When Diego left, I studied his note more carefully. The paper felt odd, textured differently from standard stock. Turning it to catch the light, I noticed something else. Small numbers written in the corners, nearly invisible unless you knew to look. Scout's signature trick from high school. A way to track photos and documents. Diego had been photographed recently. By Scout. The pieces were slowly clicking together. Scout wasn't just Victor's occasional photographer. She was building a case, collecting evidence, playing both sides. The warning she'd written on that business card, use this if SHDF, was more than just friendly. Advice. It was an invitation to join her game. I spent the next hour pretending to sleep while my mind worked overtime. The cops would want me to talk. Victor would want me silent permanently. But there was a third option, one that required perfect timing and more luck than I usually counted on. When Gore returned around 2 a.m., I was ready. Had a visitor, I told him straight away. Diego Vasquez, Victor's new enforcer. Gore's expression darkened. Making threats. Making promises. The kind that involved concrete shoes and Eden River. I held up the note. But he made a mistake. I explained about the paper, about Scout's numbering system, how it proved Diego was connected to her photography operation. She's been working an angle, I concluded. Building evidence against Victor. Those cameras at the Neon Serpent, they run 24/7, and I bet Scouts got private copies of every piece of footage. Gore was silent for a long moment. Why tell me this? Because either way, I'm screwed. Victor wants me dead. Tusk wants me framed. You're my only shot at something resembling justice. What do you propose? Get me out of here. Just for a few hours. I know where Scout keeps her archives. With that footage, you could bring down Victor's entire operation. I can't just. Can you honestly tell me you believe I shot first last night? The question hung between us. Gore's moral compass might be skewed by years of navigating Eden's murky waters, but it still pointed somewhere resembling due north. If I do this, he said slowly, and you're playing me, then you can shoot me yourself. With proper documentation this time. He almost smiled at that. Almost. 2 hours. Just enough to beat Tusk back from his meeting, weekly briefing with Victor. What do you think Tusk goes every Tuesday night? The clock was ticking, and sunrise was still a few hours away. In Eden, a lot could happen before dawn. 2 hours was plenty of time to change the game, or get killed trying. You could lose your badge over this, I remarked as Gore led me to an unmarked cruiser in the station's backlot. Dawn was still hours away, the city wrapped in that peculiar darkness found only in the small hours. I could lose more than that, he replied grimly, handing me my jacket. You've got 1 hour, 45 minutes. That's when I officially report your cell empty and trigger a manhunt. I slid into the passenger seat. You're taking a huge risk. Calculated risk. He started the engine. Been watching Tusk for 6 months. He's dirty, but I can't prove it without hard evidence. You might be my best shot, or your worst mistake. Story of my life. For the first time, I saw something like humor flash across his features. Where to? The Shadowbox building. 15th floor. Gore raised an eyebrow. Abandoned office complex? Perfect place to hide things. Scout's been using it as a dark room and archive. I glanced at the dashboard clock. 1:43 left. Drive faster. The streets of Eden at 2:45 a.m. belonged to the creatures most humans preferred to forget existed. Street lights flickered erratically, casting strobing shadows that could hide anything. A whir-rat skittered across an intersection. 3 hobgoblins shared a bottle outside a 24-hour pawn shop. A succubus in a business suit tottered on impossibly high heels, concluding some late-night negotiation. You know, I said, breaking the silence. When I first moved to Eden, I thought the crime families were the biggest threat. Now I know the real monsters wear badges and robes. Gore's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. We're not all. I know. That's why I'm trusting you with this. The Shadowbox building loomed ahead, its Art Deco facade crumbling from decades of neglect. Gore parked in the loading zone. You're not coming up? I asked. Someone needs to keep lookout. And if this goes sideways, better that only one of us is compromised. I nodded and headed for the service entrance. Scout had given me the combination months ago, part of her emergency protocol. She trusted me, which in Eden was a commodity more valuable than gold. The elevator groaned and creaked its way to the 15th floor. Scout had chosen well. Most of the building's residents were too paranoid or too high to investigate strange noises after midnight. Her makeshift studio occupied the corner office, overlooking both the river and the city center. Perfect surveillance position. I punched in her secondary code, our high school graduation date, and the door clicked open. Moonlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows illuminated what could only be described as an obsessive investigation station. Walls covered in photos, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes. Red string connecting various points in a web that would make conspiracy theorists proud. But it wasn't paranoia if they really were out to get you. I found Scout's main archive in the converted supply closet, metal filing cabinets, each drawer meticulously labeled. Victor, financial. Tusk, meetings. Judges, Eden County. The last drawer was labeled Neon Serpent, incident reports. Inside, I found exactly what I needed. USB drives numbered and dated, security footage from every angle of the bar. The most recent drive was labeled Last Night Priority. My fingers trembled as I loaded it into Scout's computer. The footage was crystal clear. For camera angles, showing 11:47 p.m., me entering the bar. 11:51 p.m., Bendetti spotting me, running out the back. 11:52 p.m., me following. 11:54 p.m., Victor's men taking positions at the windows. 11:56 p.m., shots fired from the bar at an unseen target me. 11:57 p.m., my return fire. Even more damning, the cameras captured audio. Make it look like he fired first, someone instructed. The voice was unmistakably Tusk's. I copied the files to my phone and was about to leave when I heard footsteps in the corridor. My blood ran cold. Those weren't cop shoes. I killed the lights and moved to the window. 3 floors below, Gore's cruiser sat right where we'd left it. But Gore wasn't in it. The footsteps stopped outside Scout's door. A key turned in the lock. I pressed myself against the wall, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. The door opened, and for the second time that day, I found myself looking down the barrel of a gun. "You should have taken Victor's deal," Scout said softly. Her blonde hair was pulled back, and there was something different in her eyes. Something cold. "Now I have to clean up this mess." "Scout!" My mind raced. "What's going on?" "Now." Thick and acrid. "We fought savagely. Old friends turned enemies, grappling between burning filing cabinets and scattered photographs." She caught me with an elbow to my wounded shoulder. I returned with a knee to her ribs. The fire alarm finally triggered, its shrill scream piercing through the smoke. Sprinklers activated, drenching us both. Scout was stronger than she looked, muscles honed by years of camera equipment and darker activities. She'd pinned me against the wall when the door crashed open. "Freeze!" Through the smoke and water, I saw Gore's massive frame. Behind him, SWAT officers in full gear. Scout's hands went up slowly. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw the girl I'd known in high school. Lost, frightened, trapped by choices she couldn't undo. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The apology would have meant more if she hadn't been reaching for the knife in her boot. Gore's taser rendered the point moot. As they cuffed her, Gore turned to me. "You okay?" I slumped against the wall, shoulder throbbing. "Define okay." We got her full confession on the wire. Names, dates, the whole operation. He glanced at the burning files. "Looks like we lost some evidence." "No," I said, pulling out my phone. "Got what matters right here. That plus Scout's testimony." I trailed off, thinking of the years we'd been friends. How'd I miss this? "Sometimes the rot starts from places you'd never expect," Gore said, reading my thoughts. Victor's been recruiting since high school, targeting the vulnerable, the ambitious, the loyal. Scout fit all 3 categories. And Tusk, on his way down to the station. Once word of this raid hit, Victor's whole network started collapsing. Turns out loyalty has its limits when the feds start taking down doors. I looked at Scout, now restrained and silent. What happens to her? Federal witness protection if she cooperates fully. Prison if she doesn't. Gore shrugged. Her choice. Through the smoke-stained windows, I could see the sunrise beginning to paint Eden's skyline. A new day, literally and metaphorically. "Come on," Gore said, offering me a hand. "Let's get that shoulder looked at. And then you've got some questions to answer. Am I under arrest again?" "Protective custody. For now." As we left Scout's ruined office, I realized the sun was rising on a different Eden. A place where maybe, just maybe, justice could scrape out a toehold against corruption. But knowing this city, I'd probably be back here again. Getting arrested was practically a civic duty in Eden. At least this time, I was on the right side of the handcuffs. The fluorescent lights of the emergency room made everything look sickly and surreal. A nurse with scales instead of skin stitched up my shoulder, while Gore gave his preliminary statement to a detective I didn't recognize. This one wore an actual suit, a Fed, most likely. Detective Gore's account matches the security footage, the suit was saying as I tuned in. The suspect attempted destruction of evidence and assault with a deadly weapon. Which suspect? I asked pointedly. "I'm a victim here, remember?" Gore shot me a warning look. Dane Matthews was operating under my direct supervision as an informant. His actions resulted in the successful apprehension of Scout Miller and the seizure of critical evidence in the Victor Crowell case. Informant. Nice spin. The Fed seemed to buy it, scribbling notes on his digital tablet. We'll need your full statement, Mr. Matthews. After medical clearance. Sure, but first coffee. Real coffee, not whatever motor oil you serve in the break room. The suit looked offended. Gurr almost smiled. The nurse, a lizard shifter named Nurse Vasquez, apparently enough Vasquezes for everyone in Eden, finished her work with a final tug that made my teeth clench. Keep it dry for 48 hours, she instructed. No gymnastics, no acrobatics, no getting shot at. There goes my weekend plans. She was definitely not amused. Must have seen my type before, the kind that made light of everything because the alternative was acknowledging how close death always lurked in Eden shadows. An orderly wheeled me to a private recovery room. Gore followed, dismissing the uniform posted outside. We're safe here. Safe enough. This wing has silver-lined walls. Keeps the supernatural element at bay while we question you. I settled into the uncomfortable hospital bed. Through the window, I could see the beginnings of a beautiful morning, the kind that made Eden look almost normal, almost peaceful. How bad was it? I asked. The fire, bad enough, destroyed most of Victor's financial records. But between what you copied and Scout's hard drives, we've got plenty. She okay? Physically? Minor burns, smoke inhalation. Psychologically? Gore shrugged. Time in therapy, if she's lucky. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the water stains. I should have seen it coming. All those after-hours photography jobs, the expensive equipment on a bartender's salary. Don't do that to yourself. According to her initial statement, Victor approached her 6 years ago, right after her brother disappeared. Marcus. My blood chilled. He was mixed up with Victor? Looks like it. She got roped in trying to find him. Learned the photography skills to document Victor's operations, hoping to trade the information for Marcus's location. Did she ever find him? Gore's silence answered that question. A knock interrupted our conversation. Agent Wilson, the suit, poked his head in. Judge McKenna's been arrested. Judge Ramirez has agreed to hear the initial proceedings this afternoon. We need your statement, Mr. Matthews. Bring that coffee I mentioned, and you've got a deal. For the next hour, I recounted everything. My history with Scout, the bounty hunt that led to last night's shooting, the threats from Victor, my discovery of Scout's photo archive, and the twitchy events of the past 12 hours. Agent Wilson played the video footage on his tablet. For angles showing irrefutably that Victor's men fired first, that Tusk's photo was a carefully staged lie. We're building a RICO case, Wilson explained. Racketeering, corruption, conspiracy. If we flip Scout and get her to testify, we could take down Victor's entire operation. And what about Tusk? In custody, already trying to cut a deal. 3 other detectives were named in his initial statement. We're looking at complete department overhaul. I leaned back against the pillows. This was bigger than I'd imagined. Not just a dirty cop taking bribes, but systemic corruption running through Eden like rotten old wood. What's my part in all this? Witness testimony. Then, if you're smart, witness protection. I'm not running. Both men looked at me like I'd sprouted feathers. Victor still has people on the outside, Gore warned. His organization won't just dissolve. Maybe not, but I have a business here. Client. Connections. Eden's my home, warts and all. Wilson shook his head. It's your life. Exactly. And I choose how to live it. They didn't like it, but they didn't have time to argue. Other cases, other criminals. In Eden, the supply of both was endless. By noon, I was discharged with a prescription for painkillers and a follow-up appointment I'd probably miss. Gore drove me home, taking a circuitous route to check for tails. You could have died last night, he said as we pulled up to my building. But I didn't. That counts for something. You're either very lucky or very stupid. A little bit of column B. My apartment was untouched. Victor's boys hadn't had time between our midnight escapade and their subsequent arrests. I collapsed on my couch, exhaustion finally catching up. Get some rest, Gore advised. I'll have a patrol car outside tonight. Tomorrow we meet with the district attorney. Your testimony is critical. I'll be there. Scout's testimony will be the real game changer. if she cooperates. Federal protection is contingent on full disclosure. After Gore left, I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat by the window. The sun was high now, Eden bustling with its usual chaos. Tourists gawked at shapeshifters. Pickpockets worked the crowds. Street musicians played for coins. Life went on. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard you at quite a night. Zebra, my contact in the information brokerage business. If you knew about last night already, the city's rumor mill was working overtime. I texted back. Just another Wednesday. Coffee tomorrow? New information about the Sullivan case you might want. I groaned. The Sullivan case. A missing person that had been giving me headaches for weeks. But business was business, and rent didn't pay itself. Usual spot. St. Morgens. Bold choice. Stay alive till then. Sage advice in Eden. I took another sip of whiskey, savoring the burn. My shoulder throbbed in counterpoint to my heartbeat. 24 hours ago, I'd been arrested for the 8th time this year. Now, I was a federal witness in the biggest corruption scandal Eden had seen in decades. Tomorrow, I'd wake up, meet Zebra for coffee, chase down leads, and try not to get shot, arrested, or propositioned by any supernatural entities. Just another day in paradise. The doorbell rang at 8 a.m., too early for any sane person to be awake. I'd spent a fitful night between pain meds and nightmares, replaying the moment Scout had pulled that gun on me. 6 years of friendship shattered in seconds. Groaning, I shuffle walked to the door, checking the peephole out of habit. A familiar face stared back, distorted by the fisheye lens. I opened the door to find Detective Gore holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. Peace offering, he said, extending 1 cup. Figured you might need it after last night. You have no idea. I accepted gratefully, inhaling the rich aroma. Commune. My apartment was standard private investigator chic. Mismatched furniture, filing cabinets overflowing with case files, and a corkboard covered in photos, notes, and red string. Gore's eyes swept the room with professional interest. Interesting setup, he commented, gesturing to the board. Working on something specific. Always. That's the Sullivan case. Missing since October. The philanthropist's daughter? The same. 22 years old. Last seen outside the Emerald Mile Casino. Surveillance cameras mysteriously malfunctioned that night. I sipped my coffee, feeling more human. Supposedly gambling, but the dealers say she never made it inside. Gore studied the photos. Think it connects to Victor? Everything connects to Victor in this town. Question is how directly. I gestured to the couch. What's really going on? You seem awfully friendly for someone who was ready to lock me up yesterday. He sat carefully, testing the furniture's weight capacity. Things have changed since last night. Departments in chaos. 12 detectives arrested or suspended. 2 judges. The mayor's taking a leave of absence. Just from what we uncovered. Just the beginning. Scouts talking. And when a photographer talks. He pulled out his phone, scrolled, then handed it to me. The screen showed a spreadsheet with hundreds of entries. Names, dates, payment amounts. I read aloud. This is Victor's entire payroll. Was. Federal task force raided his compound 2 hours ago. Found him packing bags. Trying to flee? More like evacuating. Seems he had contingency plans for this scenario. I handed the phone back. So what now? Victor's gone. The department's cleaning house. Where do I fit in? That's the interesting part. Gore set down his coffee. The DA wants your full cooperation as a material witness. In exchange, they're prepared to offer immunity for any past indiscretions. I haven't committed any crimes. His look suggested otherwise. Unlicensed bounty hunting, breaking and entering, several assault charges that never stuck. Let's be real, Dane. Fair point. What's the catch? No catch. They need clean witnesses to rebuild public trust. You're one of the few people in Eden who didn't take Victor's money. That's because he never offered. Or because you're smarter than you let on. I considered this. Federal protection would mean restrictions, limitations. But the alternative, being a marked man in Victor's crossfire, held even less appeal. I'll think about it, I said finally. But first, I have a meeting at 10. With the information broker? At my surprised look, he explained, we've been monitoring several of Victor's contacts. Zebra's on the list. As a suspect, as a person of interest. His network touches everyone in Eden, including Victor. Great. Drinks with bad cops, coffee with investigated information brokers. My social circle was really expanding. Speaking of networking, I continued, what about Scout? What happens to her? Gore's expression darkened. Complicated. She wants to testify, but Victor's lawyers are arguing coercion. Her evidence could still be ruled inadmissible. Because she was working for him? Because she documented everything under duress. If the judge accepts that defense, half our case collapses. I drained my coffee, mind racing. What if she had other evidence? Something Victor didn't know about? What are you thinking? Scout kept redundant backups of everything. She was paranoid. Trust no one, duplicate everything. The files we found might not be her only copy. You know where she might hide secondary backups? I grinned despite the situation. I know her high school locker combination. Her what? Eden High. They never changed the locks. Some of those lockers have been rented by the same families for 3 generations. Scout used hers as a dead drop. Gore check his watch. That's 2 hours before your meeting. Want to take a field trip? The Minotaur smiled for the second time since I'd met him. I thought you'd never ask. Eden High loomed like a gothic horror castle, all turrets and gargoyles and windows that seemed to watch you. The morning fog hadn't lifted completely, giving the building an extra layer of menace. I hated this place, I muttered as we climbed the steps. Bad memories? Just memories. Principal Blackhorn had it out for me from day one. Said I was a disruptive influence. Were you? Only on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Weekends too, technically. The main doors were locked, but maintenance entrance had the same code it had had for 20 years. Some traditions died hard in Eden. Inside, the hallways echoed with ghostly teenage memories. Lockers lined both walls, most decorated with holographic stickers that flickered as we passed. Scouts had been near the engineering lab. She always loved the proximity to the chemistry. Supplies. Here, I said, stopping at locker 347. The combination lock was ancient but well-maintained. Scout's favorite numbers, 23-42-66. Her birthday. Her brother's birthday. The day her brother disappeared. The lock clicked open. Inside was typical high school debris. Old textbooks, a varsity letter, photos of friends who'd probably moved away or moved on. But in the back, secured with magnetic strips, was a small metal case. Jackpot, I whispered. The case contained 3 USB drives and a note in Scout's precise handwriting. For Dane. If you're reading this, something went wrong. Trust no one. Question everything. The truth is darker than you think. S. Gore examined the drives carefully. These could change everything. Or it could be insurance. Scout always liked having leverage. Let's find out. My car has a laptop. Back in the cruiser, I plugged in the first drive. The files loaded slowly, revealing a meticulously organized digital archive. Court documents, police reports, recorded conversations, and photos. God, the photos. Victor with judges. Victor with state representatives. Victor with people I recognized from television, from billboards, from the society pages of Eden's newspaper. This isn't just local corruption, Gore breathed, scrolling through the evidence. This is statewide, maybe federal. The second drive contained financial records that made the spreadsheet I'd seen earlier look like pocket change. Shell companies, offshore accounts, a money laundering operation that spanned multiple countries. The third drive required a password. I tried Scout's usual suspects, her birthday, her brother's name, combinations thereof. Nothing worked. Then I saw the note again. The truth is darker than you think. I typed, darker. The drive unlocked. What we found made my blood run cold. Video files, dozens of them. Coverage of meetings, of transactions. But also, murders, disappearances. Evidence that Victor's organization didn't just corrupt the system. They eliminated anyone who threatened it, including Scout's brother. The video labeled Marcus_final lasted 3 minutes and 17 seconds. 3 minutes of watching someone I'd known die at Victor's hands. We need to get these to the DA immediately, Gore said. First, we get copies. Everything. Scout trusted me to back her play if things went south. I'm not letting this evidence disappear. Agreed. But Dane, that meeting at 10. I have to go. If I don't show, Zebra will know something's up. His information network will report any irregularities immediately. You're going to walk into a meeting with one of Victor's contacts carrying evidence that could destroy them all. I'm going to walk in with a federal detective providing oversight and a backup plan if things go sideways. Gore started the engine. This is either brilliant or incredibly stupid. Welcome to my world. The cafe was a neutral ground in Eden, one of the few establishments that catered to all species without prejudice. Zombies sipped black coffee. Vampires ordered type-specific smoothies. Regular humans tried not to stare at the casual magic happening around them. Zebra occupied his usual table by the window, a newspaper spread before him. His actual appearance was unremarkable. Medium height, medium build, glasses that seemed purely aesthetic on someone who could probably see in infrared. Dane, he greeted as I sat. You look worse than usual. Rough night. Imagine. Word travels fast in our circles. I glanced at Gore, who'd positioned himself at the counter within earshot. How much have you heard? Enough to know Victor's operation is collapsing. Enough to know you the reason why. Zebra folded his newspaper precisely. The question is what happens next. That's up to you, I said carefully. Are you on Victor's payroll? Zebra smiled thinly. I'm on everyone's payroll. Information is currency in Eden. Victor paid well, but he wasn't my only client. And now, business continues. Different players, same game. He reached into his jacket and produced a tablet. Which brings us to the Sullivan case. I'd almost forgotten why I'd agreed to this meeting. What do you have? Surveillance footage from the casino's parking structure. The traffic cameras might have malfunctioned, but the independent parking company system didn't. He slid the tablet across. The video showed a sleek black SUV pulling up to the casino entrance. A woman matching Bethany Sullivan's description exited. So far, standard procedure. But then the video showed something unusual. 2 minutes after entering the casino, she returned to the SUV, clearly distressed. She got in, and the vehicle sped away. How did you get this? Parking company security guard was one of mine. Sold the footage before Victor's people could confiscate it. Where did the SUV go? That's where it gets interesting. Zebra tapped the tablet. Another video. Loaded. Security camera from across the street. Nevada plates, rental company barcode on the windshield. Rented under the name Michael Doherty. Never heard of him. Neither had I, until I ran a deeper search. Turns out Michael Doherty died 6 months ago in Phoenix. But his credit card was used to rent that SUV. So someone's using his identity. Someone who has access to dead men's credit cards. Someone with resources. Someone with Victor's connections? I finished. But Victor's guys usually aren't involved in kidnapping socialites. Not unless there's a bigger angle. What if there is? Zebra leaned forward. Bethany Sullivan's father owns 3 casinos. 2 of them have been trying to buy land from Victor's front companies. Land that would be perfect for expansion. The pieces clicked. Leverage. Precisely. Kidnap the daughter. Force the father to sell. But Victor's being arrested. Who's still working his angle? Not everyone's been caught. His organization had layers. Contingency plans. And there's still no body, which means she might still be alive. I stood quickly. I need to tell Gore. Easy, Dane. If Victor's people realize you know this, they might accelerate their timeline. The girl could disappear permanently. I sat back down, mind racing. Gore caught my eye, his expression questioning. I gave an almost imperceptible shake of my head. What do you recommend? I have a contact. The rental agency's night manager. For the right price, she'll give us the GPS data from that SUV. How much? $5,000. Cash. I nearly laughed. I don't have that kind of money. No, but your new federal friends might. I glanced at Gore again. Could I trust him with this? Could I trust Zebra? Set it up, I decided. Tonight. I'll have the money. Wise choice. The girl's been missing since October. Every day decreases the odds of a happy ending. We concluded our business, and I returned to Gore's table. He'd been monitoring the conversation through some kind of audio enhancement device. Kidnapping case tied to Victor? He asked as we left. Someone in his organization, at least. The Sullivan girl might be leverage against her father's casino empire. We need to bring this to the task force. Not yet. If Victor's lawyers get wind of it, they'll use her as a bargaining chip. Gore stopped walking. You're asking me to withhold evidence in a federal investigation. I'm asking you to save a girl's life. Victor's been moving money and people around for months. If his backup plan involves Bethany Sullivan, they've had plenty of time to hide her beyond reach. What if this is just another one of his layers? Distraction while the main operation regroups. I thought about the video of Marcus Vasquez dying, about Scout's desperate attempt to document enough evidence for justice, about all the missing persons in Eden who never made the news because they weren't rich enough or photogenic enough. What if it's not? Gore ran a hand over his face. 7 months on the force, and already my conscience is bending pretzel-shaped. Welcome to Eden Ethics. Population, 2. What do you need from me? Access to department slush fund. $5 grand. And backup tonight. The GPS trace. And whatever we find at the end of that trail. He pulled out his phone, started typing. I'm officially taking you into protective custody. For your safety. Works for me. We move tonight. But if this blows up, I'm claiming temporary insanity. Standard operating procedure in Eden. We spent the afternoon at the precinct, copying and securing Scout's evidence. The USB drives contained enough material to warrant 6 additional arrests. 3 more judges, a state senator, and 2 casino executives. The corruption ran deep, roots spreading through Eden's infrastructure like cancer. Around 4 p.m., the DA arrived. Angela Rodriguez was barely 5 feet tall, but radiated authority that made most supernatural beings nervous. She reviewed our evidence methodically, asking pointed questions about chain of custody and witness protection. MS. Miller's testimony, combined with these documents, gives us the strongest RICO case in Nevada history, she concluded. But I'm concerned about lone wolf elements. Victor had a dozen operations running simultaneously. Not all of his people will surrender peacefully. We need to find Bethany Sullivan, I interjected. If someone from Victor's organization is holding her, if, Rodriguez emphasized, you have speculation and security footage, not evidence of ongoing criminal conspiracy. With respect, Gore interrupted, speculation has merit in missing persons cases. The timing and method suggest professional involvement. Rodriguez studied us both. You have until midnight. Find concrete proof of connection, or this becomes a cold case while we focus on prosecuting the main organization. After she left, Gore and I reviewed our approach. The GPS tracking would happen at 8 p.m. Latest sunset would provide cover. Between now and then, we needed to prepare for any contingency. Question, I asked as we organized equipment. Why are you helping me? Yesterday, you were ready to let Tusk throw me in a cell. Yesterday, I believed in a corrupt system. Today, I've seen what's possible when someone fights back. He checked his service weapon. Besides, you're growing on me. Like a fungus? Like a particularly stubborn case of heroism. Don't call it that. I'm just a guy who hates seeing bullies win. Whatever helps you sleep at night, Matthews. By 7:30, we were positioned outside the rental agency. Zebra's contact, Melissa, arrived exactly on time. She was nervous, kept glancing over her shoulder, fingers twitching like she needed a cigarette. The 5,000 changed hands quickly. She produced a tablet with the SUV's travel history. This vehicle was reported stolen 2 days ago, she explained. But the GPS kept pinging until yesterday morning. Last location was Pine Valley Road, mile marker 47. Up in the mountains. What's out there? Nothing much. Old mining claims, abandoned cabins. People go there to disappear, or to make others disappear. Melissa left quickly, practically jogging to her car. The GPS coordinates glowed on the tablet screen. 1 hour to get there, Gore calculated. Mountain roads at night, probably longer. And no backup, I added. If this is a trap, we'll handle it. He started the engine. But Dane? If we find her alive, and it leads back to Victor's organization, we're calling this in immediately. No heroics. I nodded, though we both knew promises meant little in situations like this. The mountain roads were treacherous even in daylight. Pine trees crowded the narrow lanes, their shadows deepening as our headlights pushed back the darkness. At mile marker 40, we killed the lights and continued on low beams only. Normal patrol procedure might alert anyone watching the road. At marker 45, we pulled off onto a forestry access path. 2 miles to the location. Gore whispered, checking his phone's GPS. We walked from here. We equipped ourselves in silence. Gore had his service weapon. I'd borrowed a taser from the locker at the precinct. Flashlights, communication equipment, and evidence collection bags. Everything we needed for either a rescue or a crime scene. The forest was alive with sounds I tried to ignore. Owl hoots, rustling underbrush. The paranormal side of Eden rarely ventured this far out, but my imagination filled in the gaps with more creative terrors. There, Gore breathed, pointing through the trees. A cabin, barely visible in the moonlight. Dark windows, no visible activity. The black SUV from the security footage sat off to one side, covered with a plastic tarp. We approached methodically, using trees for cover. Thermal scans showed 2 heat signatures inside, one stationary, one moving around. At the door, Gore signaled, 3 count. We breached hard. The first room was empty. Kitchen and living area, furniture covered in sheets like ghosts. The moving heat signature came from the back bedroom. Police. Hands up. The man who emerged looked more accountant than criminal. Balding, glasses, button-down shirt rolled up to his elbows. But the laptop he slammed shut told a different story. Michael Whitmore. Gore read off his ID. You're under arrest for kidnapping and extortion. I want a lawyer. You'll get one. Where's Bethany Sullivan? Whitmore's face twisted. I don't know what you're talking about. That's when we heard the thumping. Rhythmic, desperate, coming from beneath our feet. Gore found a trapdoor hidden under an area rug. The thumping increased as we lifted it. A ladder led down to what must have been a root cellar or emergency bunker. At the bottom, curled in a corner, was Bethany Sullivan. Alive if barely. The next 2 hours blurred together. Paramedics arrived. Federal agents secured the scene. Whitmore was charged with enough crimes to guarantee he'd die in prison. Bethany hadn't been physically harmed, just traumatized by months of isolation and the knowledge that her father was being extorted. The laptop contained everything: communication logs with Victor's financial division, instructions on maintaining the operation after his potential arrest, contingency plans for disposal if the ransom wasn't paid. As dawn painted the sky, I found myself back in Gore's cruiser, heading down the mountain. We'd saved a life, broken another piece of Victor's empire. Made a difference, however small. Hell of a ride, I commented, exhaustion finally catching up. Not over yet. We still need your full deposition for the DA. And Whitmore's already naming names. More arrests. At least 6, including someone in the mayor's office. I rested my head against the window. When does it end? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe we just keep punching until we can't anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Game's not over, Matthews. Victor. Even in custody, he was reaching out. Warning or promise? I couldn't tell. Yeah, I said to Gore. I think you're right. The Eden courthouse looked different in morning light. Less imposing, more like what it was supposed to be. A place for justice, however imperfect. Bethany Sullivan's rescue had dominated the news cycle. Victor's organization was unraveling faster than experts predicted. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Print journalists, television crews, the supernatural press corps with their various recording devices. I navigated through the chaos, Gore running interference. Matthews, a voice called out. Agent Wilson pushed through the crowd. The DA wants to see you. Sullivan's father is here. Thomas Sullivan was exactly what I expected. Silver hair, expensive suit, the bearing of someone used to commanding rooms. But his eyes were red-rimmed, his handshake trembled. Mr. Matthews, I can't adequately express my gratitude. Just doing my job, sir. Your job nearly got you killed. Multiple times. He pressed a business card into my hand. If you ever need anything at all, you call that number. After he left, I examined the card. Golden edges, embossed lettering. Direct line to a billionaire. That could be either very useful or very dangerous in Eden. The DA's office was a study in organized chaos. Case files everywhere, 3 paralegals working furiously, Rodriguez herself coordinating multiple conversations simultaneously. Matthews. Seat. She barely looked up from her phone. Whitmore's cooperating fully. Named 17 people in Victor's operation, including 3 we hadn't identified. Your theory about layered contingencies was correct. Happy to help. You'll be called to testify, both about last night and your original arrest. Your credibility is crucial. When preliminary hearings start next week, the trial itself could be 6 months. 6 months of being a target. 6 months of watching my back. 6 months of being the man who helped bring down Eden's most powerful criminal organization. Rodriguez finally looked at me. Have you reconsidered witness protection? I run a business here. Have clients, responsibilities. Dead men have neither responsibilities nor clients. Noted. She sighed. At least let us assign protection detail. Someone to watch your apartment, monitor your movements. Fine. But I'm not changing how I operate. Somehow, I expected that response. After the briefing, I found Gore waiting in the hallway. What now? Now I catch up on sleep I've missed for about a week. I check my watch, and maybe have a proper meal that doesn't come from a vending machine. I need to file my reports. But Dane, yeah, you did good work. If you ever consider applying to the force, I'll pass. But thanks. We parted ways in the parking garage. I caught my reflection in the side mirror of a car. 2 days' worth of stubble, eyes shadowed from exhaustion, bandaged shoulder visible through my shirt. The very picture of a man who'd survived something he probably shouldn't have. My apartment felt like a stranger's when I returned. Too quiet. Too normal after the chaos of the past 48 hours. I ordered Chinese delivery, took a long shower, tried to remember what my life was like before I got arrested. Again, the food arrived. The delivery guy was nervous, another dragon shifter, younger than most. His hands shook slightly as he handed over the bags. You're Dane Matthews, he said. Not quite a question. That's me. I go to Eden U. Criminal justice major. What you did, taking down Victor's operation. It's going to be legendary. Before I could respond, he thanked me earnestly and practically ran back to his car. I stood in my doorway, food growing cold in my hands, trying to process this new version of reality where people knew my name, where I'd become part of Eden's mythology. Inside, I spread the files from Bethany Sullivan's case across my coffee table. Even with her rescue, questions remained. Who else might Victor have taken? What other operations were running that we hadn't discovered yet? My phone rang. Unknown number. Dane Matthews. Mr. Matthews? Agent Kim, FBI. We need to talk about those USB drives. Can it wait till morning? No, sir. We found something else. Something that wasn't in Scott's original evidence. My stomach dropped. What kind of something? A video file. Encrypted separately from everything else. When we cracked it, he paused. It shows Victor receiving payment from someone high up in federal law enforcement. Federal. We believe it's connected to an ongoing investigation. One that could compromise active operations nationwide. You're saying there's a federal mole protecting Victor's organization? I'm saying we need to meet. Tonight. And Mr. Matthews? Tell no one. Not Gore, not the DA, not anyone. The line went dead. I stare at my mostly untouched food. Every time I thought I understood the scope of Victor's corruption, another layer revealed itself. Federal involvement meant this was bigger than Eden, bigger than Nevada, potentially national in scope. Trust no one, Scout had warned. I pulled up Gore's number on my phone. My thumb hovered over the call button. He'd been straight with me so far. Risked his career, maybe his life, to do the right thing. But if there was a federal mole, I couldn't risk it. Instead, I sent a text to the number on Thomas Sullivan's card. Need a private venue for a meeting. Tonight. Sensitive information. Can you help? The response came within minutes. Penthouse access. Security provided. Passcode will be TechSpot at 8 p.m. Discretion guaranteed. At 7:55, my phone buzzed with a passcode. The Sullivan Organization's downtown headquarters was a 40-floor monument to new money and old influence. I took the private elevator to the penthouse, noting the security cameras had been disabled. Agent Kim was waiting when the doors opened. Early 40s, tired eyes, the general air of someone carrying weight they shouldn't have to. Mr. Matthews, thank you for coming alone. You said federal mole. That gets my attention. He gestured to a secure conference room. Inside, multiple laptops displayed video feeds, file directories, and what appeared to be surveillance footage. This is Unit 77, he explained. A task force investigating corruption in federal law enforcement. We've been tracking Victor for 2 years. But every time we got close, someone warned him. Exactly. We suspected a leak, but couldn't pinpoint the source. He clicked a file. Scout's encrypted video loaded. Until now, the video quality was poor, clearly taken from a hidden camera. But the subjects were identifiable. Victor Crowell, massive and wolf-like, seated across from a man in an expensive suit. Money changing hands, documents being exchanged, and the face of the federal agent. Deputy Director Harrison Crawford, Kim said, third in command at the Bureau. Access to active investigations, witness protection database, federal resources. How many operations has he compromised? At least 17, we can prove. Probably more. He ran a hand through his hair. The video alone won't be enough. We need someone who can testify to Victor's procedures, his methods, someone who can help us trace the connection. Scout Miller. She's our best shot. If she'll cooperate with federal investigation. She will. But there's a complication. I explained about the ongoing DA case, the local corruption, the pressure to keep everything contained within state lines. If the feds take over, I concluded, the local arrests might be jeopardized. We need both, Kim admitted. State charges for the local operators, federal for Crawford, and anyone else in the Bureau. How do we coordinate without alerting Crawford? We don't. We move fast. Tomorrow morning, simultaneous raids. Crawford gets picked up at his Virginia residence while we execute warrants here. And you need me to corroborate the evidence, provide local knowledge, help us identify faces in Scott's photos. He pulled out a folder. There's more. Crawford has a safe house in Eden. We believe there may be other victims like Bethany Sullivan being held for leverage. Where? That's what we need to figure out. Scout's evidence mentions it, but the location is coded. I thought back to the locker, to the note she'd left. Scout likes patterns. Her brother Marcus went missing on the 66th day of the year. That number appeared in her locker combination, in her passwords. March 7th, giving our timeline that gives us 2 days. To prevent more people from disappearing. To save the ones already missing. We worked through the night, analyzing photos, cross-referencing locations, building a profile of Crawford's visits to Eden. Around 3 a.m., something clicked. Bishop Street, I said suddenly. There's an old church converted to apartments. Crawford appears in 3 separate photos from different years, always at the same building. Kim pulled up property records. Owned by an LLC. Registered agent is Michael Dougherty. I finished. Same identity used to rent the SUV for Sullivan's kidnapping. How did you? Because in Eden, everyone shares the same bag of tricks. Different players, same game. We had our location. Kim assembled a federal team while I provided building blueprints and local knowledge. The raid would happen at dawn, coordinated with the Crawford arrest. As Kim made final preparations, I asked the question that had been bothering me. Why involve me? UH.